I have the feeling there's something which I call the 5% rule, which is as long as any school of dissent remains below 5% of the population, no money is budgeted to destroy it. You know, it's just, they have learned about noise in the social circuitry, and they just say, yeah, these people, they gripe. And we are held up as an example of what a free society this is. You say, you think we have a controlled society? You think we tell people what to say? Go down to Esalen and hear what Terence McKenna is saying. We tolerate this. What clearer proof do you need that we are magnanimous, generous, open-hearted, and liberal? We tolerate this kind of thing. I think, of course, that they do not understand the nature of the game, but it's a good thing, because if the game is played on their terms, we lose. What they don't understand is the power of memes and the fact that psychedelics are a touchstone of creativity, and creativity can always provide breakouts from any situation, no matter how confined. And also, they have a horrifying fascination with us, because they, as the managers of society, probably know more about its internal contradictions and its failings and its shortcomings than we do. I mean, the information we have available to us is the declassified, downloaded, cleaned up stuff. Recently, I was in London, and the hotel, the conference was at the ICA, which is down near Buckingham Palace, and so the hotel was on Vincent Square. So it was about a 20-minute walk from Vincent Square down to the ICA, and it's right through Whitehall. It's where all the intelligence agencies and the Ministry of Defense and all this. And we would stay late at the ICA, and walking back at 2 in the morning, the lights in Whitehall are burning at 2 in the morning. The lights at the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Economic Planning are on at 2 in the morning. Why? Because people are sweating blood in those buildings. They are working around the clock to keep the entire system. Look at these rainforest clearing statistics. Look at this oil slick. Look at this. This is costing us money, gentlemen. What about this? And the answer is you can manage some of the future some of the time, and you can manage all of the future some of the time, but you can't manage all of the future all of the time. It keeps breaking loose in the most unexpected fashion. The Internet is a perfect example. Here was a privileged instrument of the intelligence community and the scientific elite that served it. Ultra-high security, totally out of the reach of the common man. And meanwhile, over at Raytheon, they're trying to, this was in, years ago, they were trying to develop a chip to guide a heat-seeking missile, and for the Navy. And they had certain design specifications which had to be met. And the project had ground on for a couple of years, and they couldn't make this chip meet the specifications. Finally, the project was canceled. The chip is thrown in the trash. And then some engineer digs it out, and he says, you know what we could do with this? We can't hit a plane in flight with a missile with this thing, but you know what we can do with it? We could make a little desktop computer with this. And these guys said, why in the hell would we want to do that? We have enormous computers. We have computers the size of a city block. Why would we want to do that? You say, no, you don't understand. Not for us. We have the godlike technology. It's a commercial thing. We can sell it to the marks, and they can word process with it or something. So it came to be. But then they didn't understand that these things, it's a pretty harmless thing. a computer sitting on a desktop with Word running on it. But you sell 20 million of them, and before you realize, my God, they can all be connected together. And then people just plug them in, and an entirely new beast springs into being. A technology so powerful that the head of the CIA 10 years ago didn't have that kind of access to information, that kind of access to real-time imaging, that kind of access to econometric data and that sort of thing. And so it escaped. And so while they were watching various, while they were keeping us from building nuclear weapons, they seemed to do that rather well. No terrorist has ever set off a thermonuclear device, so far as we know. So they were watching from the ramparts for that because it was something they could understand. This thing came rushing in the back door, and now the cat is out of the bag. Yeah, was it Scott? I'm sure that that's true. I'm sure that that's true. The fact that the IRS is running on 20-year-old computers. The government is just being left behind. And the world corporate state doesn't care. It finds governments a huge and boring nuisance. In the same way that after the 30 Years' War, basically there was an enormous social shift in Europe. Before the 30 Years' War, Europe was ruled by popes and kings. After the 30 Years' War, it was ruled by parliaments and peoples. That's a generalization, but true. Well, now, the nation-state is being put out to pasture. It's being told, as the church was told in the 17th century, you care for the poor. You take care of the highways. You bury the dead, and you educate the children. But all the stuff which makes money, we, the new, streamlined form of social organization, will take care of the money-making enterprise, and your job is to keep the roads cleared and the dead out of sight. And so this is happening. When I understood this, it was like a bolt of lightning. When Jesse Helms stood up on the floor of the U.S. Senate and called for the assassination of the American president, I realized this has become a circus. These people are yahoos. When was the last time a governor of the World Bank threatened the life of an American president? When was the last time that someone who sits on the board of directors of the IMF felt the need to physically threaten the life of a president? No, it doesn't happen. Real power doesn't act that way. Only pseudo-power, Yahoo power, thug power acts that way. And so government has become largely irrelevant. And I don't know whether this is good or bad. It certainly is complex. War was an instrument of national policy for governments. War is not an instrument of policy for corporations. They hate war. But governments kept cultures in a deep freeze. We spend a lot of time lamenting the destruction of Aboriginal cultures, this rainforest tribe, that Central Mexican language group, so forth and so on. But while we're lamenting the loss of these exotic cultures, notice that your culture is being erased. If you were, raised in a close-knit Jewish family, if you were raised in a small town in the Midwest, those cultures are gone for most people. We have all been given mall culture and commodification of values. It isn't only happening to the Witoto and the Huichol, it's happening everywhere. This uniformitarianism of culture is entirely for the convenience of market economies.